What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 301 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I'm continuing talking about different Justice League books written by Mark Waid, and so today I'm going to talk about JLA, Divided We Fall. This is the second storyline in Mark Waid's run on the ongoing Justice League series. This immediately follows the events of the previous volume, Tower of Babel, where the Justice League was planning on voting Batman out of the Justice League because of the part that he played in Ra's al Ghul's scheme to eliminate most of the population of planet Earth. And that's something that I like quite a bit more about Mark Waid's JLA as opposed to Grant Morrison's. I talked about this whenever I was reviewing World War III from Grant Morrison's Justice League run, how you could read volumes 1 through 5 of his JLA run, and you could read them in any order. It wouldn't really matter if you read it in the correct order, or you could read volume 3 and then volume 2 and then volume 4 and then 5. It really wouldn't matter. Now, once you got to volume 6, where it was pretty much calling back to almost every volume that had come before, you kind of had to read that volume last. But all the other volumes, it felt to me like you could read them out of order. And I believe that because I did read those volumes out of order. Way back when I first read that run, I was reading them from my high school library, and I didn't read them in a particular order. I just read them in whatever order I could get my hands on them because they were being checked out at different times. So if I saw a Justice League book in the library that I hadn't read yet, I would read it. And so I didn't read them in chronological order. With Mark Waid's run, you kind of have to read it in chronological order because stuff that happens in the Divided We Fall volume, it builds on stuff that happened in Tower of Babel. We start off with this story of the evil queen from fairy tale archetypes. She comes to life and she believes that Diana, Wonder Woman, is the beautiful princess from fairy tale archetypes. And so she wants to destroy Diana, and while all this is going on, pretty much all of fiction is becoming real. And this is a very huge threat for the Justice League. But this story is only like 3 issues long. I think it's not a very long story, but the threat definitely feels very real. And I also like that Mark Waid is creating a new villain for the Justice League. That's something that you don't see a lot with any comic book, really. A lot of times, writers and artists will just bring back an old villain. And I think part of that is they're afraid that if they create a brand new character, and if that character ends up taking off and being wildly successful, then they could have taken that character and done something with them at a creator-owned company like Valiant or Image or Dark Horse or whatever, and then if the character had been that successful there, then they could have made a lot more money. I think that a lot of creators are kind of afraid that if they take their own characters that they have come up with on their own and introduce them in the Marvel or DC universe, then those characters are instantly corporate-owned, and if that character becomes wildly popular, then there's nothing to say that they are going to get the money that they feel like is owed them, which they would get if they took that same character and introduced them at another company. I feel like that may be why you don't see a lot of creators introducing new characters these days. You see it some, but not nearly as much as what you used to see in the 60s and 70s, but you still see some new characters being introduced, but a lot of times, like, if you pick up any Justice League comic coming out today, chances are the villain is going to be Darkseid or Lex Luthor or somebody who we have seen before, a character who has been around for a really long time. And I really like that Mark Waid in this volume is creating a lot of new villains for the League to fight. Now we also get to see Dr. Destiny at one point in this book, and he's an old villain, but for the most part, you have these weird aliens called the Id. They show up later in the book, and then you have this fairy tale queen. She's the villain for the first third of the book, and I like that. I like that he's creating new villains for the League to fight, and it's not just the same villains that they fought before. And unfortunately, we haven't seen the Fairy Tale Queen a whole lot since this story. I know she showed up at least once in a Superman book after this, but other than that, I don't think that we've seen her a whole lot since then. But anyway, this kind of is building on the distrust that is among the League since they voted Batman out. Not only did half the team not really trust Batman anymore, even though he was no longer with the League, you also had people who voted to keep Batman in the League, and they still kind of have some trust issues with Batman too. We find out that the Flash, he's talking to Plastic Man, and he says, yes, Batman had files to kill us, but you voted to keep him out of the League. We should have kept him here so that we could have kept a closer eye on him. So we find out that even the people who voted to keep Batman in the League, their vote wasn't entirely good-natured or altruistic. They had something kind of up their sleeve, at least some of them did. But we see that the League is very close to falling apart because people like Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Plastic Man, they don't really trust Green Lantern, Flash, or Martian Manhunter anymore because they all voted differently. And Superman, he is the one who's kind of trying to hold everything together, and we kind of saw just a hint of that at the very end of the Tower of Babel volume, whenever Oracle was telling Superman, hey, look, this is what's happening, this is something you need to fix. And so Superman, he comes to Batman, and he's telling Batman about this Dr. Destiny adventure that they had, which, by the way, this is a little weird, but at the very end of Grant Morrison's JLA run, they say, hey, we've got a Dr. Destiny adventure, let's go. And Green Lantern says, who's Dr. Destiny? And Flash says, oh, he's easy, we'll fight him in like 10 minutes. And then, actually, you need to read Justice League Midsummer's Nightmare before you read Morrison's run, but Dr. Destiny was crucial in that event. So Green Lantern should have known who Dr. Destiny was whenever he was asking who that is at the end of Morrison's run. And then we see Dr. Destiny once again in this book. It's a little weird that he's fought this particular iteration of the League 3 times in a span of like 3 years. And this story is kind of just a little one-off thing. He's not the important thing of that issue. Mostly it's how the League is interacting with each other in that particular issue. But then Superman and Batman are able to decide that there is only one way that they can win the trust of the League back and also get them to trust each other once again. And that leads into the final chunk of this book where everyone in the League who has a secret identity is split in two. So now there is a Wally West and there is a Flash. There's a Bruce Wayne and there's a Batman, etc. And that's a really interesting story. Maybe my favorite from Mark Waid's run, which is hard to say because there's been a lot of great stuff from this run so far, but I really like this volume because Plastic Man, or rather E.O. O'Brien, he is the one who kind of gets everyone, gets them to get their act together so that they can save the day, because splitting Bruce Wayne from Batman is a remarkably bad idea, as Plastic Man / E.O. O'Brien points out. He says that Bruce Wayne is the one who has all the anger because it was his parents that died, and so Batman is kind of useless, and Bruce Wayne has all this rage that he doesn't know what to do with, and then similar things are kind of going on with everyone who has their own secret identity. They're all kind of experiencing problems that otherwise they wouldn't be experiencing if they were unified. For example, Wally West is perpetually late, and that's kind of putting a strain on his marriage. E.O. O'Brien has these struggles. He's once again struggling to keep his criminal nature under control because he was a criminal before he became Plastic Man. Stuff like that. It's really fascinating looking at the internal character of each of these characters. And I really like that Plastic Man, of all people, is the one who kind of gets everyone together and rallies them to defeat the bad guy and then unify themselves with their superheroic parts. Really like that. I thought that was very interesting. And then this also kind of sets up something I'm 99% sure is a plot point in Judd Winnick's Outsiders run, which had to have started just a year or so after this volume. Maybe not even that. Metamorpho is kind of sort of brought back in this volume, but then he's once again, I guess, put to rest, you could say, and that calls back to the very beginning of Grant Morrison's JLA, where Metamorpho died when the White Martians were attacking Earth, and then he's kind of sort of brought back here. Then in Judd Winnick's Outsiders run, there is a version of Metamorpho, but we find out he's not the original Metamorpho. I think his name was like Shift or something. He looked a little bit different. I'm pretty sure this is setting that up. There's a last page zinger here where we see some woman walking down the street, and then there's someone in an alley, and he says, ma'am, I'm experiencing a little bit of a problem here. Could you help me? And she's kind of got a surprised look on her face. I think that might be Sapphire Mason, who is Metamorpho's wife. It looks a lot like her. We see her at one point in this story. I think that lady is Sapphire Mason, and if that's the case, I'm pretty sure that is the Metamorpho that we will later see in the Outsiders, but I'm not sure. And I don't think that's followed up on in the final volume of Mark Waid's JLA run. But anyway, this is a really solid book. This is probably the best book from Mark Waid's JLA run. Really, really excellent stuff. Really great character stuff. The stakes are really high. Those are the two big things I'm always looking for in a great JLA book. Really good character stuff, and the stakes being really high so that it feels like it needs the League working together. Mark Waid hits both of those perfectly. This is some really great stuff here. So I highly, highly recommend that you guys check out JLA Divided We Fall, and I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.